Good. So let us start. So today's topic is conflict. What I said that resolving conflicts using TOC's evaporating cloud method. If you have noticed, I have not used the term conflict management because I don't want to manage conflicts. I want to resolve them. So there's a final difference, a fine difference between managing. Managing means yes, I supposing if I have diabetes, I can manage that. But I'm saying that I want to do away with it. So I want to do away with the conflicts. It does not mean that you will never face any conflicts, but we are going to discuss a method to deal with them and resolve them. Conflict is an inevitable part of our life, whether it is personal life or work life or whatever, and it has been a matter of interest for centuries. If you know Plato and Aristotle and many other sociologists, biologists, organizational experts, and so on, they have done a huge amount of research on this. But what Dr. Gozat came up with a method to deal with it. So I would like to discuss that method so that we can use it and okay, we can resolve the conflicts. As you know, there are various types of conflict in the sense that there could be conflicts amongst different organizations or within the organization, within the department or inter-department. If you have some groups, then within the groups and with other groups. And lastly, you can be in a conflict with yourself. No, we don't call it conflict, but we call it dilemma. Sometimes we want to do something at the same time we want to do something else. Now, what is all that? What is conflict? What is dilemma? We'll see enough examples of that. See, there is stress and conflict in the organization, and people working at all levels are under stress, irrespective, right from CEO to the lowest level person. So, does stress causes conflict or conflict causes stress? It is both. If you are stressed, you are likely to take some actions, and those are those actions could be in conflict with somebody else's interest, and vice versa. So, for example, if production manager produces more and more huge production, it could create it could create some stress for sales manager because it would be his job to sell it. At the same time, when sales manager looks at the market and says that let us change our product mix, now the demand has shifted from here to there and all that. Now this could cause some stress for the production manager. So eventually, both of them may find themselves in some kind of conflict. It is produce what we sell versus sell what we produce kind of conflict that can happen. Because in order to pro- uh, uh, protect our future sales, the sales department may insist that let us keep stock. That could cause some stress for the production department, and if they achieve that, it could cause some stress for even finance department because they might feel their cash flow under pressure. So this can create conflicts. Not necessarily that they will. It depends upon how we deal with them. Sometimes even finance department is in a dilemma. They are not very sure what they want because when they are tight on liquidity, they demand that the stocks be reduced, sell them off, get some money. But when it is time to report net profit and ROI, they wish they had more stocks to allocate and spread overheads. So they are in a dilemma with themselves. Purchase manager, take an example. He is all the time told by the top management, you lower the cost of materials. So he negotiates with various suppliers to get lower price. In the bargain, he happens to compromise on quality, which creates a problem for production. So there could be conflict between them. And if he buys in large quantity, it might get redundant, and that large quantity could cause problem for stores department as well as for finance department because they will have to pay for it, they will have to arrange for the money for it. So these kind of things could cause stress, conflict. It goes on. And again, purchase manager is told Production must never stop for want of raw materials. So in order to meet that, you might want to keep higher level of inventory, which finance may not allow, production also may not allow. And if he doesn't do that, then he actually runs the risk of getting out of stock. Again, it's a stress and stress and stress for all. The main cause for this stress is uncertainty. In our life, in our business, there's a huge amount of uncertainty. And the main cause for conflicts is not only stress, but it is the way we measure individuals. How do we set targets to them? In our previous sessions on this throughput accounting, that is decision making using TOC measurements, we have seen how it creates problems if we set the measurements in a certain way. So, okay, Dr. Godrat has created thinking processes tools which help us to resolve the conflicts. Okay, the tool is called evaporating cloud or it is called conflict resolution diagram. But we'll be referring to it today as evaporating cloud or simply cloud for the sake of simplicity. If you have seen, there are three types of conflicts. Let us see. I want to live in city and I want to live in the country. So it means this is okay. One type I say I want X and the opposite of X because you can't live in city as well as in the country at the same time. So I want something, I want X, and also I want opposite of X. So it's a conflict or dilemma for me. Okay, another conflict. I want to eat what I want. I want to eat fast food, pizza, this that, and at the same time I would like to be fit and healthy. Now this is okay, another type of I want X and Y both, but I have to choose. I can't have both, right? The third type of conflict. The manager says we need to go faster to deliver more features. He's talking about software. He wants to deliver more features, so he urges his team to go faster. And what does the team say? We need to go slower to increase the quality. Otherwise, if we go faster, there are chances that we'll end up in more bugs, more defects, and we'll be spending more time on that. Now, this is the third type. I want X, they want Y. We can't both be right. Only one of us can win at best. So, this is the third type of conflict. So, I need X and the opposite of X. That's not possible. I need X and Y, but I can't have both. Or I want X, they want Y. We both can't be right. Only one of us can win. So these are the three types of conflicts that we are going to deal with. Whenever any conflict happens, typically these are the thoughts that come in our mind. I say, I am right, you are wrong. And the other person says, you are stubborn, obnoxious, and illogical. If you have observed, when you start thinking about the other party, that the other person is stubborn, obnoxious, and illogical, that is about the same time the other person is developing the same view about you. So this is mutual. Both of us think about each other the same way. We are illogical. Now we have to overcome that. Typically, there are three sides of any conflict. So, supposing you and me are in conflict, there is a my side versus your side, and there is a third side which is called right side. So if you ask me, okay, okay, my side is the right side, obviously, and if I ask you, you will say your side is the right side, right? So the third side, though it exists, we believe that it's my side. So how the conflicts are resolved today? How do we go about them? One side gives up if they don't want to deal with the problem, or they don't want to deal with the other person. So they just surrender. They just give up. Okay, whatever you say. So what is the end result? The end result is I lose, you win. How conflicts are resolved today? One side forces the other side to give up. Typically, this happens when I'm a boss and I force my subordinate to accept my decision. I don't even want to discuss. Or if you are a parent and you force your child to behave in a particular manner or take some action that you want him to take. So the result is I win, you lose. So then one or both sides ignore the problem. One or both sides ignore the problem. So what happens? Both of them are have given up. They say that there's no point in talking to this person. So the end result is I lose, you lose. And this is happens. This is what happens more often than not, that the sides negotiate to a compromise. We say that okay, I give up this, you give up that, we debate on that, discuss on that, and we compromise and we think that we have resolved the conflict in the best possible manner. But what is the actual end result? The end result is I lose, you lose. So the expected result is either it could be I lose, you win, or I win and you lose, or I lose and you lose. Both of you. How about I win and also at the same time you also win? This is what we are going to discuss today. We are going to discuss the TOSIS tool to make it sure that both the parties win. So how do we go about resolving the conflict? How do we go about it? Is it that simple that uh, we go by the popular advice and say that listen effectively, view conflict as an opportunity, be quick to forgive, be passionate, compassionate, patient, sympathy, empathy, care for other person, willingly give up something, positivity, don't be defensive, don't be aggressive, be calm. Well, these are the behavioral traits. This may help. I'm not challenging that, but this is not this is certainly not going to resolve the conflict. So how are we going to go about it? How are we going to go about it? We are see these are the advices that tell us how to behave, but they are not giving us any tool. They are not giving us any method to handle this conflict, and we are going to precisely discuss this method. So what is the advice that we give? Typically, we are told whenever we have any behavioral the training program, we are told to think out of the box. Something which you okay we don't do routinely. Okay, go outside the box and think. Today, I am going to give you the reverse advice. I'm saying don't think outside of the box. Don't think outside the box. But let us break the box and see what is there inside. Now, supposing this is a box that is presented to you, and I say that look, this is a box and it has a conflict. So please resolve it. So let's start with that. Let's open. Okay, it is open at the top. So inside is the problem, the conflict, the current dilemma that we face, and that we wish to resolve it. So let's open the box. So we are used to be told of thinking outside the box. We say nothing doing. Today we are going to think inside the box. So we decide to break it right. So we try to open the box. We fold down the back. We also fold down the slides. There's nothing inside. Well, not quite. There is a cloud at the bottom. So let's have a look from directly overhead. Oh, so we see a small diagram there. What it is? It says there is a small box when something written A and B and D and C and D slash. What is that? We don't know. So let's try to understand what it is. What we say that what we are written in that block A is something that we want to achieve. So it is our objective. And in order to achieve that objective, there are two requirements that is called B and C. So there are these two requirements or these two needs which are there. And in order to meet that requirement, we have to take some action. We want to do something. So what we say that okay, in order to achieve B, we must have we must have D. And at the same time, in order to achieve C, we must have D, okay, D prime we call it, or not D, or less of D. So on one side, the B, in order to meet the need of B, we want to have D or more of D, and on the other side, to meet the same objective, we want to, okay, we need to achieve C, and for that we don't want D or we want less of D. So this is the conflict that we are going to deal with today. So this diagram is called conflict resolution diagram, or abbreviated as CRD, or evaporating cloud, or EC, or typically we say this is a cloud. So I'm going to use this terminology as cloud. So cloud is nothing but this diagram, conflict resolution diagram. So let us take one story. Let us understand it in terms of how it happens in the real life. There is a 12-year-old son, John, who wants a new and violent video game called KRAG, Crag. This is not a real game, I believe, just a name that is taken. And his mother doesn't want him to have it. Simple. They have been arguing about it for a week and neither is budging. The conflict is spilling over in other parts of their lives. Let's start writing the cloud and help them to resolve it. Now, before we do that, what happens typically in most of the homes? Most of the time, the mother prevails over the child and says, "Nothing doing. You will not have this video, or you will not have this video game." Or at times, the child is more troublesome, or poor mother doesn't have enough time to convince him, so she gives in. So there is a lose win or win lose. What we are looking at is win win. Can we really find win win in this kind of conflict? Let's see. So how to write a cloud is a very simple method. Just write down what each party wants. So let us first write down what John wants. He wants to have crack game. Very simple, right? And what his mother wants, she says that don't have crack game. Now you cannot have the game and as well as not have it. So these two things are in conflict. You can either have it or you cannot have it. So this is how first we have documented what the conflict is. Now what? Just by writing it is not going to help, right? But yes, it will help if you take further steps. When you write a cloud, at times you find that there is no real conflict. Sometimes it happens that when you really sit down and write a cloud, you ask both the parties. You are a third person. You ask Mr. A or Mr. X. Okay, what is your problem? What do you want to do? Okay, you write down. You ask Mr. Y, what is your problem? What do you want to do? You write down. And then you examine. And sometimes you find that they are not in conflict. There is a misunderstanding that there is a conflict. So just by writing down at times, not I would say not most of the time, but at times, you see that there is no conflict. There is only a misunderstanding. But in this case of John and his mother, there seems to be a real conflict. So we have written this. Now the next step. Identify John's need that the game satisfies. Why John wants this game? What will that he will get? What is the need that he is looking at? Answer is very simple. John needs to have fun. And also, none of his friends have this game. So he can be the first and only one in his group to have this game. Right? So this is his need. So he wants to have fun and he wants some recognition in his friends group. So his need is have fun and have recognition. So we now understand from where John is coming from. Now let us look at his mother's side. What is her need that makes her insist that he will not have this game? She says that since the game is violent, he will practice violent things, and she doesn't want him to practice violent things. So she says, not practice violent things. So now we understand from where she comes from. So what we say, John wants to have fun and recognition, so he wants to have a crack game, and John's mother doesn't want to have that because she doesn't want him to practice violent acts. Now what? Why? Okay, why do they care to even discuss? Just because mother is going to pay for it? Not really. John says it has been like a war zone at our home for last week, and I don't like it. I don't think mom likes it either. Maybe that's it. We get along together at home. That's our common objective, and his mother agrees to the common goal. So the common goal is they want to get along together at home, and therefore there are two needs and there are two wants. Now let us see how we read the club. We read it this way that first we read one side and then we read the other side. We say that in order to get along at home, I must have fun and recognition, right? And in order to have fun and recognition, I must have crack game. This is the John side. Now let's read mother side. In order to get along at home, John must not practice violent acts. And in order to not do violent things, he must not have crack game. So this is how we read the cloud from left to right. From objective to need, from need to want of one side, and again from objective to the need of the other side. And in order to achieve that need, what the other side wants. So this is how we read the cloud. Now we have to ask two questions. What are those two questions? Does want D block need C? No, John does want D block need C. That is having the crack game. Crack game. Okay, will it block the need of his mother not to practice violent act? The answer is yes. Also, we have to check whether not having crack game will block the need of the other side, that is John's side, having fun and not recognition. Yes. So if these answers are yes, then we have defined the cloud correctly. The objective of taking this example is to show you how to write this cloud, how to write this diagram. We can start with the conflict. Then for every side, we ask the what is the need and what is the objective, and go to the other side, ask for the need, check that it is in conflict with this, they are mutually exclusive, or both the things cannot exist together, and then find out what is the need, and then read the whole cloud from left to right. So starting with A to B, B to C, and how do we read it? We say in order to get along together at home, we must have, or John must have fun and recognition. And in order to have fun and recognition, John must have the crack game. Then we read the other side that in order to get along together at home, his mother says that John must not practice violent acts. And in order not to practice violent acts, he must not have the crack game. And have the crack game and not have the crack game are in conflict. And having the crack game jeopardizes or blocks the need of not practicing the violent act, and not having the crack game jeopardizes the need or blocks the need of having fun and recognition for John. So this is how we write and this is how we validate it. See, there's one great thing about the cloud is that it turns the conflict from one side against the other side to both sides against the problem. See, this is not very easy, but when you write like this, psychologically, the other person or rather both the people, okay, both the person start seeing each other's side and also start seeing that how their want is blocking the need of the other person, which is very difficult to see otherwise. Also, it provides a way for both sides of a conflict to do something that not usually done. Look at the needs of the both the sides. We don't know what is the need, why he is taking this action, it is coming in my way. This is always the thinking from people. Right? So this is how the conflict get defined, and it hurts us. So conflicts are between two sides, maybe my side versus your side. I want something that I think is important to me, and at the same time you are doing something which is important to you. And the two wants could be either opposite to each other, or they could be mutually exclusive, or they cannot coexist. Or I say that I want more of this, and you say we must have less of this. So we have a conflict between two wants. Let's write down the wants of both the sides. This helps us to get conflict in open and check to see if the wants are really what we are fighting about. When we write, we really know what we are doing, right? So how do we go about it? I'm just revising it because there are some people who have joined late. So first we write what is conflicting, what I want and what the other person wants. Just write that and make sure. Okay, we call it box D and D prime. They are wants, right? And make sure that they are in conflict. They cannot exist together. They are mutually exclusive. See, people do things for a reason, right? So, what is the need behind what they are doing? So, then we identify the need of one party that, okay, in order to achieve what? In order to achieve what that he wants to do this, right? So, the arrow indicate that the entity at the tail of an arrow is necessary in order to have the entity at the head. Means the box B is the need. In order to achieve this need, we must do what is written in box D, that is the want. So by doing this, we come to know where the sides are coming from. And see, if you are a third party and you are trying to resolve somebody's conflict, you will not know this. So this is the systematic way to explore and write down. And when people talk about their want and why they want, what is that they want to achieve, the things become easier and they start understanding the other person's viewpoint and what is doing and why he is doing. So it leads to better understanding of the conflict. Then we achieve when we look at what is the common goal. It's a goal they hold in common, but not necessarily they are taking it for the other person. They want to achieve this goal. This is their contribution. They are focused on their contribution. They don't really care as to what the other person is doing. But the goal helps the sides to understand that they have something in common. So how to read the cloud? I'm repeating. The cloud is to be read as follows from left to right. In order to have A, I must have B. That A is the common goal, B is my need. And in order to have B, I must have D. That D is the want to achieve the need B. Then I read the other side. In order to have A, that is the common goal or objective, the other side must have C. C is the need that we define. And in order to meet that need of C, the other side must have D prime or not D. So D and D prime are thought to be opposite of each other or they cannot coexist. Okay, they cannot coexist. So this is how we read the conflict. First we learn how to write the okay, how to write it. Then now we have checked again, we have seen again how to read it. See, many times we ask this, we say something and ask the other person, sounds good? Or we say, oh yeah, what you're saying sounds good. What does it mean? See, when you read a cloud aloud, when you read it aloud, you also happen to listen to it. So when you listen to it, your brain tells you, no, it is not sounding really good. You know, this word or this sentence doesn't sound to be really good. We need to change that. So reading aloud is important and our ears are tuned to the logic. Our ears tell, oh, this is not sounding okay, logic. And we'll catch ourselves changing the wording if it does not sound good, right? And the logic is wrong. So what we do, we go back to the cloud and change it and again read it aloud. Now, once it sounds good, it means, and we applied the test that this is in conflict, this is that D jeopardizes C and all that, then it becomes really a well defined and correct cloud. Because if we don't define the problem correctly, we cannot solve it. Now, let us look at another story, a brief story. This is a story about a software export company. Now, I've taken this example. I worked in software, so it is closer to my heart. So just have a quick look at it. So you did not have any knowledge about software company. That is the storyline tells us. See, writing a good storyline is very important. It did not be a very long story. It may be one paragraph or two paragraphs. But if you want to really draw a good cloud and you really want to resolve it, start with a storyline. Write it in a brief, in few sentences. So here is my storyline. We are an Indian company engaged in business of software exports. Our customers are in US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. As a company, we understand that we need to provide satisfaction to the market now as well as in the future. We also understand that we need to provide secure and satisfying environment to employees now as well as in the future. Now our endeavor to achieve this will take several steps from time to time. However, we see a conflict in our quest for satisfying our customers and satisfying our employees. So, what is the conflict? Okay, how do let's see both the sides. Okay, one side says that our customers spend billions of dollars in software development and maintenance. It makes a business sense for them to outsource some of their work to India and get the advantage of high talent and low cost. There is increasing pressure on us to carry out more than 70% of the work in India, though our customers would love to see 100% work happening here. So what our customers want? Do the work offshore, do it in India. Now what our employees want? Our young, qualified, talented, ambitious workforce is keen to move to the developed world. It is the experience, money, lifestyle, and the exposure to the developed world that attracts it. And they're in short supply. It's not that they are available in abundance. So our young people want to go abroad. They want to go to US or Europe or wherever because they want to have that experience. So here is the cloud. Now, how does the cloud look like? So what is the conflict? Conflict is send engineers abroad versus do more and more work in India. If we send more engineers abroad, it means we'll be doing the work on site in US, in Europe. And the other side, what customers want, do more and more, okay, do more and more work in India. In that case, what it means that don't send engineers abroad. So it is send them versus don't send them. So this is a real conflict. We can't achieve both. So what is the need? In order to meet employees' need, employees, they are young, talented, and they want exposure to new lifestyle and all that. Okay, in order to meet their need, we need to send our engineers abroad. We need to give them that chance, that opportunity. Whereas, in order to save money for our customers, customers have given us the mandate. We must do more and more work in India. So what is the common goal that our business wants to achieve? We want to have successful business. So in order to have successful business, we must meet employees' needs. And in order to meet employees' needs, we must send engineers abroad. And on the other hand, in order to have successful business, we must save money for our customers. And in order to save money for our customers, we must do more and more work in India. So this is the conflict that we face. So how to go about writing a conflict if you don't know the conflict? Say two people have come to you and they're fighting on something and they're asking you to mediate. So what do? How do you mediate if they are not able to clearly tell you what the conflict is? The simple way. So if you as we have seen so far, if you know the conflict or dilemma, start from the right. Just write the conflict D and D prime, then identify the need of D, then identify the need of C, and then find out the objective and then read it from left to right. Now, if you don't know the conflict, what the conflict is, you are confused, you don't understand what people are saying, let's first start with the common objective. What is that both of you want to achieve? Then ask one party, what is the need, what action, what result that they are seeking to achieve their objective. And then what action, what is that they want in order to achieve their need. Then ask the other party, what is the need that they want, what is the compelling need for them to achieve this objective, and then what is that they want to meet that objective, and then check with D and D prime whether they are in conflict. If they are in conflict, then check whether D jeopardizes C and D prime jeopardizes B. So if you know the conflict, start from right to left. If you don't know the conflict, start from left to right. Start with the objective, then needs, and then wants. Let us take some examples of common cloud. Why I'm taking so many examples? I will be taking a number of examples because the first step is very important. First step in the sense, the writing the cloud correctly is very important. If you are not able to write the cloud correctly, obviously you will not be able to resolve it. Well-defined cloud is almost half solved. So let us have a look at some more common clouds. The project manager's dilemma. He wants to plan the task with a lot of safety for obvious reasons. At the same time, he wants to plan tasks with minimum safety. No, you cannot have a lot of safety and minimum safety at the same time. So obviously there is a conflict. So why we asking the question, what is the need that you want to meet by planning the task with a lot of safety? And his answer is, I want to assure project promises. I said that I will deliver this project by this date. So if I don't have a lot of safety, maybe I may not be able to keep my promise. So he wants to give a lot of safety. Then we ask him, if that is the case, why do you want to plan the task with minimum safety? It's a dilemma within him. The same person is having two different opposite thoughts. So he says that I need to minimize the lead time because if I code for 3 months project, I will take 5 months. Okay, my customer is not going to grant me the project. It's not only the time will escalate, but even the cost. So I have to minimize this project lead time, and also I have to deliver the project within that lead time. So that's why at times I am tempted to keep a lot of safety, and I am forced to plan the task with minimum safety. And his object is obviously manage project successfully. So how do we read this conflict? Okay, in order to manage project successfully, I must assure project promises, and in order to meet project promises, I must plan tasks with lot of safety. And on the other hand, in order to manage project successfully, I must minimize project lead time. And in order to minimize project lead time, I must plan tasks with minimum safety. So this is how we read from left to right. Now this project manager that we talk to has one more dilemma. So what is that dilemma? He says, as I start executing a project, there are a lot of changes that customer suggests. And there is initially we had a very good discussion and we arrived at the scope that customer agreed, sign off. And now we have started execution and he has started giving us some changes. So sometimes I feel like accepting the changes, and sometimes I'm in dilemma. I want to say nothing doing. I will stick to what you had told us originally. So we ask him a question. You said accept changes, right? So what is the need that you need to satisfy, you need to meet by accepting changes? My need is obvious. I want to deliver the desired product to the customer. I want to give him what he actually wants. So it is natural that he will come up with some changes. Then we ask him the question that why do you want to stick to the original scope in that case? Well, I'm working for my company, so I have to deliver the project within time and within budget. Customer is not going to pay me more because I accepted some changes and I done him a favor. So I'm in a dilemma. Sometimes I feel like accepting the changes. Sometimes I feel like I should stick to the original scope. So in order to have a successful, so I have to read from left to right. In order to have a successful project, I must deliver the desired product, and in order to deliver the desired product, I must accept changes. And then I read the other side that in order to have a successful project, I must deliver on time and within budget. And in order to deliver on time and within budget, I must stick to original scope. Now, accept changes and stick to original scope are in conflict. At the same time, accept changes jeopardizes the need of deliver on time and within budget. Because if you keep on accepting changes, you may need more time, you may need to spend more money. So it actually jeopardizes, blocks the need of delivering on time and within budget. So if you stick to original scope, what it does, it blocks the need of delivering the desired product. Because as customer sees the product, as you develop, he comes up with some corrections. There could be some communication gap, some more detailing required. So if you say that nothing doing, what you have given us to us as a scope will deliver only that, then it is blocking the need of delivering the desired product. So this is how the conflict is correctly defined. Now there is one more dilemma that we have seen. Sometimes here as a project manager, he says that I feel like taking some expensive action and expedite. And at the same time, I feel that I should not take expensive actions. So we ask him the question, what is the need that you want to meet by taking expensive actions and expedite? He says, I want to secure the reputation, not my personal reputation, but reputation of my company. So what it has got to do with that? We say that if I don't take these expensive actions and expedite, my project will be delivered late and it is going to seriously damage the reputation of my company. So, in order to secure my reputation, I must take expensive actions and expedite. Then we ask him the question on the other side. You are saying do not take expensive actions. So, what is the need that you want to meet by not taking those expensive actions? So he says, well, I have been given a budget. We are not doing charity. So I have to somehow manage the project within the budget. So if I take expensive actions, I will not be able to stay within the budget. So that D, that is expensive actions, take expensive actions, is blocking the need of staying within the budget, and not taking expensive action is blocking the need of delivering the project in time and securing the reputation. So this is how it is uh, any dilemma or conflict is defined and checked whether they are really in conflict, they are really opposite of each other, they are really mutually exclusive, and also they are blocking some need. Well, so far so good. What is the next step? This we are done, right? This is what we have done. This is just a revision. This is a summary. So let's come to the example of John and his mother. We have checked that this is in jeopardy. If he has the crack game, user will not. If he has the crack game, he will have to practice violent acts. So it blocks the need of not practicing it. And if the game is not given to him, he cannot have the fun and recognition. So we check that. Here also in project managers thing, we have checked this. Now let's have a look at some more clouds. A brief storyline. As a factory manager, you want to produce according to market demand. You are also responsible for maintaining high efficiency of your machine. Fair enough. This is true for any factory manager. So what is the cloud? What is the problem? What is the conflict? So he says that let us read from left to right. In order to be a good factory manager, I must respond to the market, and in order to respond to the market, I must produce to order. Order as in order, I must produce. On the other hand, in order to be a good factory manager, I must maximize machine efficiency. And in order to maximize machine efficiency, I must produce to stock. Now, produce to order and produce to stock are in conflict. Because if you are producing to order, it means you just don't want to keep any stock. And on the other hand, so So if you are producing to order, you may not be able to maximize machine efficiency, because from time to time you might have to keep the machines idle, or you may have to do more frequent setups or changes of batches, smaller batches, in order to just produce what has been ordered. But when you are producing for stock, you can take large batches. But if you do that, you may miss some orders which are required, because there is a some big batches are getting huge batches are getting processed, and you are not able to do the work that is really required by market immediately. So this is a common cloud for a factory manager. How do we resolve it? We'll see that later. Then another storyline. As a factory manager, you want to promptly supply to the warehouses. You are also responsible for executing what is planned and go as per the budget. So in order to be a good factory manager, you okay, I must be responsive to warehouse, and in order to be responsive to warehouse, I must disrupt work for urgent orders. On the other hand, in order to be a good factory manager, I must meet plan and budget. And in order to meet the plan and budget, I must not disrupt work for urgent orders. So disrupt the work and don't disrupt the work is in conflict. Another common cloud. As a manager in a pharma company, you want to maximize the sale in your retail shops. You are also responsible to ensure that product returns due to expiry are minimal. Now, perhaps you are aware that for your certain or was certain, most medicines there is expiry date, and if the retail shop, your next door medical shop, if it is not able to sell before expiry, he is expected to return it and the company has to destroy it. So there is a huge loss on that goes waste. So you want the shops to sell as much as they can, and at the same time you want to have the minimal returns for expiry. So what is the cloud? So the cloud is, be a good manager. In order to be a good manager, I must maximize sales at retail level, and in order to maximize sales at retail level, I must accept risk of product expiration. In order to be a good manager, on the other hand, I must minimize product returns. And in order to minimize product returns, I must put limits on returns of the expired goods. So accept risk of product expiration and limiting that risk, they are not exactly the same. In fact, they are opposite. They are in conflict. You are a warehouse manager and you need to keep down the inventory cost. And you are also responsible for ensuring that all orders are fulfilled without fail and within the time, without any delay. So what is your cloud? What is your conflict? On one hand, keep inventory low, and on the other hand, hold more inventory. Why you want to keep inventory low? Because you want to keep inventory cost down. And why you want to hold high level of inventory? Because you want to make it sure that all orders are fulfilled from the store within time. So these two things are in conflict. But if you are typically observed, these wants are in conflict. But are the needs in conflict? Keeping inventory cost down versus fulfill all orders from stores? No, they are not in conflict. We need both the things. So they are not in conflict, but the actions that are required, they are in conflict. Are you getting the point? See, the important thing is that our needs are given. You cannot change, and they are not in conflict. We want to achieve both the needs. If any need is not required, we will not have it. But we need to fulfill both the needs. But the actions that we take, our wants in order to meet those needs are in conflict. So sometimes we want it could be a personal problem that I want to have successful relationship, and in order to have successful relationship, I must appreciate the other side, and in order to appreciate the other side, I give in to the other side. Okay, I accept whatever he says. Though I don't really agree, but I want to appreciate the other side. Why to displease? Why to contradict? So I give it. But on the other hand, if I want to have, in order to have a successful relationship, I must be respected. I must command respect. And in order to be respected, I must remain firm on my views. I just can't give in. Then I'll be taken for granted. I'll be taken for a right. No, give in to the other side and remain firm on your views are in conflict. Give in to the other side uh, actually blocks the need of being respected, because if you give in every time, nobody will respect you. And if you remain firm every time, then you are not able to really appreciate. You don't really appreciate the other side. You just stick to your views. So it is blocking the other need. So this is how the concept is defined. Now we are talking about general conflicts, but there are conflicts with support functions also. Now I'll just quickly run through them. I will not read everything because I think we have discussed enough number of clouds. But just in order to make you aware that how the conflicts are there everywhere. So let's take example for HR clouds. They have high attrition rates, so they want to pamper employees. At the same time, they don't want to pamper employees. They find that the industrial relations are poor, so they want to pay special rates to hire resources, and at the same time they don't want to pay special rates to hire resources, because if there are different salaries given at the same level, then it creates problems. So okay, HR department typically finds that their processes are not followed seriously. So on one hand, they want to force the adherence to their processes, and at the same time, they want to be flexible. So they don't want to force the adherence. So they are in conflict. Or this is a dilemma, we can say. The business functions are not adequately staffed. That is the complaint. But there is a dilemma for the HR department. They do not want to compromise on the specs. Whatever is really required, we want to get that kind of resource. But at the same time, they are supposed to reduce the employee cost also. They can't get the best person in the industry. So they at times want to make do with okay kind of specs. Specs means the requirements for a position. So they are in this kind of dilemma. No, what are the clouds that finance department faces? There are too many complaints about payment. They are not getting on time. Now they have to manage within the money that they have. So they want to pay on time as far as possible. At the same time, they want to postpone the payments as far as possible, so that their liquidity remains intact. So they are in this kind of dilemma. Then the investment priorities often shift. So at times they want to stick to original plan, and at the same time, D prime, they want to be flexible in investment plan. Your quality department is also in cloud. They want to institute stringent quality checks. They just don't want to let anything go unless it has been properly checked. And at the same time, they are concerned about the cost. So they don't want to institute stringent checks. Maybe they are okay with sampling or something of that kind. But they are in this dilemma all the time. IT also has some clouds. They want to provide fast service. They are internal customer. You have internal IT, and there are demands from all the departments for automation. They want to provide fast service. That is good. But then they have some budget also. They are limited resources. So they want to provide service according to the resource availability. So if they are doing that, they can provide fast service. So this is a dilemma that they have. And often there are not sufficient resources or people to do the task in IT department. They want to solve the customer problems as soon as possible. And since they are facing a shortage of resources, they want to attend urgent problems only. So solving all their problems and attending only urgent problems is in conflict. Maintenance department is also has some problems. What happens is that from time to time they schedule some maintenance and they are not allowed to do that. So they want to force the maintenance, because if the maintenance is not done in time, there is a higher risk of downtime of machine. So they want to force it. But at the same time, they are concerned about the operational priorities. What's happening? They want to meet some urgent need of customers. So they do not want to force the schedule maintenance. So this is the dilemma that the maintenance department also faces. So stop current work and reassign or stick to original schedule is the dilemma that they face. So keep more inventory or less inventory, disrupt the work for urgent orders or not to disrupt, build to order or build to stock, or product price you have to increase it or decrease it. Also the departments like HR, finance, IT, project, distribution, marketing, everywhere there are conflicts and conflicts and conflicts, and we do not know how to resolve them. But we have learned the first step of how to define them. So let us first define them. You know this is D and D prime. You know how to write this. You know how to get the needs behind the want, and you know this common goal. And then you know how to read it from left to right. And then you know whether it sounds good. That is the test that you perform. So we are trying to you resolve the conflict between D and D prime. So what happens when we write the cloud? Sometimes the conflict gets resolved just by writing. People realize that okay, what we thought is in conflict is not really okay in the conflict. But many times it is not that simple. Most of the times it is not simple. But it at least gives you both the sides the problem with the fresh eyes. But well, fresh eyes is just one thing; it's not the solution. Solution is yet to come. Also, we check what whether C whether D blocks C or D prime blocks B. So, what is the next step? What we have seen so far is the science part of defining the conflict correctly. What do I mean by science part? It's a method. There are steps. You follow these steps, and it is very likely that you will define the problem correctly. Fine. So well started, well begun is half done, but it is only half done. It's not yet fully solved. Now the next part that we need to address, and that is about the art part of it. How to how to solve it really. We have defined it, so now we have very good picture of the conflict. We have verified the conflict. We have tested it. We asked both the parties that and we are seeing that their wants are really in conflict and their wants are blocking each other's needs. So how do we go about solving it? So what we say, the next part of the step is to check the assumptions being made by both the sides of the conflict. You know, there are assumptions and assumptions and assumptions. Most assumptions are implicit. They are there and we don't even talk about them. Now this is the time to come out with all the assumptions also obvious that they may be. See, what is obvious to me may not be obvious to you. But when I tell you that, you know, the assumption is this, you may be surprised and you may question it. And then I may realize well, my assumption is not. Every arrow that we are drawn from, say, D to C and D to B and B to A and D prime to C and C to A, these okay, arrows and the conflict, they have assumptions. So we are asked this question: how do we bring out the assumption? By simply asking a question, simple question: why is want D necessary to fulfill need B? Or complete the statement: in order to have need B, I must have want D because. Now this because is okay is the most important thing, that because will bring out assumption. And we assume something. We assume. You know the how this word assume is broken? ASSUME, right? So as you me, because I have okay assumed something which I have not told you. You are assuming something else, and we are making fools of each other. So we have to break that, and let us understand the assumption of both the sides. So let us see. So this is the cloud that we are defined. So okay, we have to ask this question that in order to meet the need B, we must have D because. So that because we have to answer. So for every arrow, we have to ask this question because. So it means there could be as many as five sets of assumptions. Then we say that D and D prime are in conflict because. Then we say in order to fulfill C, I must have D because. And in order to fulfill A, I must have C because. Now in what order you should be going? I would recommend that the order should be other way around. We should first check whether D and D prime are really in conflict by defining it. Most of the times it is obvious. So if it is obvious, you did not get into too many assumptions. Then you can have a look at the assumption between B and D. Why do you need D in order to fulfill B? And similarly for the assumption between C and D or D prime. And then the assumptions of the needs. We are saying that in order to achieve this objective, we need these two things. Why do we need these two things? We need to ask that question. So this is how it will bring out the assumptions. After having done that, what next? If we find an assumption not valid, we find a route to change what we want. We are doing something on the assumption that it is like this. And when we realize that that assumption is not correct, so it means what we are doing may not really be required. So if we are able to clearly see that certain assumptions are not really valid, then we can then our cloud evaporates then and there. But what if all the assumptions are valid? It is possible. It is not that every time we have some invalid assumption and we go by that. So what do? If we really struggle, we question, we challenge every assumption, and we came to the conclusion that every assumption that we have made under each arrow is valid. Then what do? In that case, we have to change our reality. What does that mean? We have to bring in something that changes the situation. We have to do something new that we have not been doing. So if you are doing something new, it means the context of the conflict changes. And you may not want something if that new thing is in place. So that is the art of it. That is where you need a detailed, profound knowledge of your workplace. I cannot sit here and if you present me your cloud, I may not be able to come out with this kind of action unless I have experienced that kind of environment. So that's why this tool is given to you. So first you define it and then way shown to you the art part of it. You have to first be able to challenge with open mind that these are our assumptions. First of all, breaking out assumption also is also not easy because we think that, oh, it is obvious. What is there to write about it? But the advice is you please write your assumption. So when you write and then when you read, when you read what happens, it tells you whether it sounds good or not. Also, it lets the other party know what your assumption is, whether it could be a new thing for him, and he may be able to challenge it. So it is important. And a new idea. See what we do when if we come up with a new idea, we change the whole thing. We change the background, we change the situation because we are doing certain things in certain situations. If that situation is changed, maybe we may not need to do something. Maybe one of our need may go away. But when we are thinking of that, typically we think that no, this is what we can do, but it is not practical. So the advice given by Dr. Godrat is that you can come up with an idea which says that a pig will fly. Idea is that if the pig flies, I can do this, I can achieve this, or I can achieve that, or I need not do this. And then figure out how to make the pig fly. That is the thing. So let your imagination loose in order to invalidate some assumption or invalidate some want or invalidate some need. Agreed, it's not an easy task, but we are human beings, we have brains, and we are highly creative people. You may not believe that you are very creative, but you are. But you are not creative because you are not using it. If you feel you are not creative. But the fact that you have joined this session, you are creative. It proves that fact. Because you thought of something okay, which is necessary for you, and you have taken action on that, right? So we can break if we can break one of those links, it will resolve the conflict. Now, okay, let's look at this conflict. Okay, for a this factory manager, he wants so sometimes run large batches, and sometimes he says, no, let us run small batches. So we ask him question: why do you want to run large batches? What is the need? He says, I have to reduce my setup cost per unit. If I take smaller batches, I will have to do setup again and again and again, and it will increase that setup cost. So we say, all right, tell me why do you want to run small batches? So he says, I want to reduce carrying cost per unit. So what is carrying cost? Okay, we'll come to that shortly. But if you have smaller batches, your inventory cost, WIP, warehouse costs, there are many costs which are part of this carrying cost. So you want to reduce them. That's why you want to take with the smaller batches. And obviously, the the overall objective is reduce cost per unit. That is the overall objective. Now let us take a complete example end to end. That this is the dilemma that factory manager is facing. He wants to take large batches, he wants to take small batches. Okay, he doesn't know. And the reasons that he has given the needs that he has to reduce setup time per unit, cost per unit, and he wants to reduce the inventory carrying cost also. So the overall objective is reduce cost per unit, right? This is a very common cloud faced by most companies, many companies. You will see it is happening everywhere. Maybe at many times you will surprise that people are not aware of this fact. They sometimes have during the course of the month they behave in one particular manner, and when the end of the month comes, we call it end of the month syndrome. At that time, their behavior is totally opposite of what they have been doing. Fine. Now let us see a complete example of this. There is a dialogue. I have put it in the form of a dialogue between Alex and Jonah. Do you know who are they? If some of you have read the book The Goal, they are the two characters. In that book called Alex and Jonah. Now, who is Alex? Okay, Alex is a factory manager, and Jonah is the guru. His guru who has taught him POC. So let's see this example of batching. So Alex call him, who calls who Jonah. He asks him, how is he doing? Hi Jonah. He says, hi Alex. Now he comes straight to the point. What should be the batch size? 5, 50, 500 or 5000? How do you decide? Is the size of a batch really important? Can I take any? What are the implications if we have relatively small batches or very large batches? You tell me, Alex. No, this Jonah guy is not the one who will give answers on platter. He provokes thinking. So he asks him, you tell me. He says that every setup has a cost. Bigger the batch size, lower the cost per unit. I hope you understand that. If I produce say 100 units and spend 100 or say 1000 rupees on setup, the cost per unit is 10. But if I produce, if I take a bigger batch and if I produce 1000 units, then the cost per unit of that setup is just rupee 1. So bigger the batch size, lower the cost per unit, right? So cost per unit is a function of batch size. And then he asked him, what about inventory carrying cost? That is investment in raw materials, WIP, finished goods, storage, cash flow, quality, responsiveness, goes on and on. So he says, So it demands that we should take smaller batches, and there is a conflict. On one hand, in order to reduce cost per unit, we must reduce setup cost. In order to reduce setup cost, we must take large batches. On the other hand, in order to reduce cost per unit, we must reduce inventory carrying cost. And in order to reduce inventory carrying cost, we must take small batches. Now let us see. Both the sides are true. One side has impact on the net profit by way of reducing operating expenses. The other side has impact on ROI by way of reducing investment in inventory. Both are important. So this is how the cloud looks. So let me read it out for you. In order to reduce cost per unit, we must reduce setup cost. And in order to reduce setup cost, we must take large batches. And on the other hand, in order to reduce cost per unit, we must reduce inventory carrying cost. And in order to reduce inventory carrying cost, we must take small batches. And there is a clear conflict between take large batches versus take small batches. Both of them cannot exist together. So here is the conflict. So Alex has presented the conflict. Now let's see how the discussion goes. He says, let's challenge the objective. Now, typically we say that we challenge the assumptions. True, for most of the conflicts, we bring out the assumptions first and then challenge them. Here is a case that I wanted to show you, highlight that here we are first challenging the objective itself. And what he says that let's challenge the objective to reduce the cost per unit. He said, why you want to reduce the cost per unit? Reduce cost per unit. Is that the objective? Then what is the real goal? What is the goal of the company? The goal is to make more money now as well as in the future. It's obvious a goal well known to all. If we are able to reduce our cost, our profits will increase. More the gap between the sales and revenue and cost, more the gap between the sales revenue and cost, more the profit. What are your assumptions, Alex? Now he has asked him the assumptions. What are your assumptions? So Alex says, my assumption is setup is a fixed cost. Setup is a fixed cost. Really? What if the setup is done by workers who receive fixed salary? You're saying setup is a cost, is a fixed cost. If you have workers, we are paying them fixed salary. They either do setup or they do some other work or they sit idle, whatever. Your cost is same. And what if the cost of materials, consumables needed for the setup is very negligible? Small consumables are required maybe for a lathe machine or something. So what if it is that? So setup cost may not be a real cost. Every additional setup is not likely to increase operating expenses significantly. But okay, Alex is a smart guy. He said when we do a setup, we do not produce anything on that machine, right? So doesn't it cause loss of throughput? The machine is not producing anything. It means we are not producing, then we are not even selling. So if we minimize the number of setups, will our throughput not go up? Then Alex says setup time no doubt can reduce throughput if it is spent on the constraint. I hope many of you are familiar with the concept of constraint and non-constraint, and 5 focusing steps. If you are not, maybe we can hold a separate session for that. But here, what we are saying that constraint is a limiting factor. It is the for in very simple term. If you are having a factory, the slowest machine or the machine which has the lowest capacity is the constraint in the sense that you cannot sell anything more than what the constraint can produce. So he says that setup time can reduce throughput if it is spent on that slowest machine or the machine on which the capacity is lowest than others. So it will produce less, so you will sell less. More the number of steps on the constraint, less of the throughput. More the number of setups on the constraint, lesser the throughput. Correct. But what about non-constraints? By definition, they have excess capacity. So does it really matter if we take additional setups on them? No, we have said that cost of setup is very negligible. Now we are worried about what happens because we are not producing anything. So that we answered that yes, it matters only for consent. Non-constraints meaning the other machines which have more capacity. So in any case they are likely to be idle. So what happens if we use that excess capacity? So does it matter if we really take additional setups on them? He said, got it. The rule is minimize the number of setups on the constraint. For that purpose, you may combine orders if that is not delaying them. Means you can combine the order, do one setup, combine some orders and process it. You may have improvement initiatives to minimize the time spent on setup for the constraint. So what you will do, your constraint is down for setup many times. So what you do is you do one setup, combine the orders and process it, and also try to minimize the time required by setup on the constraint. Then what do you do? For non-constraints, we may have more setups, but not disrupting their protective capacity. What is protective capacity? It is the capacity needed to take care of any variation, disruption, etc. So we may consider smaller transfer batches for them. The improvement initiative should work on minimizing setup time on the constraint. That is the improvement initiative that we need to undertake, not each and every setup time. Then they need to work on reducing the setup time on non-constraints where the protective capacity is lower as compared to other non-constraints. So any more questions on the batching, Alex? He said, should I always go for small batches? So he is not giving up. He knows that original conflict that he has. So are we saying that large batches are always bad and we should always go for small batches? He said, of course, no. Ideally, non-constrained batch sizes should be reduced to the levels required for consumption in downstream processes or for the orders in the immediate horizon. So for non-constraints, your batch sizes could be small. And however, smaller batches increase the number of setups, which in turn can totally erode the productive capacity. So just don't do something very blindly, right? But you can take smaller batches, but look at the capacity available for various machines and accordingly reduce the size of the batches. So he shows the curve and he says, let's look at the curve, the optimal capacity and high on-time performance. You see, please look at the top of the curve. Optimal capacity and high on-time performance occurs somewhere in the middle of this U curve. On the left side, it's a poor on-time delivery. On the right side, also poor on-time delivery. As the batch size increases, what happens? From poor on-time delivery, you reach to high on-time performance. And if you increase the batch size even further, then again on-time performance goes down. And effective capacity also it keeps on increasing if you increase your batch size up to a level. What he says further that both extremes are non-optimal points. Sorry, both extremes are non-optimal points and should be avoided. We should not be on side B or on side C also. We should be somewhere in the middle. This means that large batches with the eye on utilization or very small batches based on immediate consumption can both be detrimental for the plant. This is a very important point. So it is not that there is no one golden rule. Have large batches or have small batches. No. Both, you don't do go for any extreme is the message that is. The optimal point for different machines with different capacities needs to be identified through an iterative process. There is no mathematics there. There is no fixed rule. You have to look at the situation. Situation keeps changing. Sometimes there is a more downtime of the machine. Sometimes there is a more demand on certain machine because your product mix can change as the time progresses. There is a market that is demanding more or less of certain products, and there are some peak periods. There are some lean periods. So considering all that, you have to decide as an iterative process what should be the uh, 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 okay, batch sizes. But the thumb rules are on consent. Think of combining the batches if they are not going to cause any delay to the orders. On non-consent, consider having smaller batches, keeping in mind how much setup time is required and whether it is eroding their protective capacity. So he is satisfied and is thankful to John, and this is how this conflict of having large batches versus having small batches is resolved. What all we did in this? What all we did? First of all, he challenged this objective itself, that is to reduce the cost per unit. The cost per unit, okay, according to TOC, is not the correct concept. It comes out of your cost accounting, which we challenged during our last session. We had a good amount of discussion on cost accounting. I'm sorry, many of you have missed that. I have a recording done for that. If anybody wishes, you can write to me separately and I will share those recordings. So we have done a complete thing. We defined the conflict. Then see, this is the part, if you have seen resolving a conflict, you can't sit in your office, your home, and just solve it. It's a matter of discussion between two parties. Even if you have a dilemma, if you have somebody whom you can trust, who can ask you pertinent questions, discuss with them. Yeah, as you talk, you hear also, you listen also. So what sounds good, what doesn't sound good, and when you look at the other party's view, you keep on refining your okay assumptions. You challenge the assumptions, you bring out new assumptions, and then you are able to evaporate at least one assumption, or do away or invalidate at least one assumption, and that invalidates your cloud. Here, actually, what we did is we have actually challenged this objective. So it is like a one pig may fly. Reduce cost per unit is accepted as a gospel thing. Every organization from top, everybody shouting, and we are saying, okay, we don't really need to achieve that. So what if we don't have it? And once you're open to that, your problem is solved. So this could be a even pig may fly kind of idea. We'll see more examples of that in our next session. Oh, so what next? Well, we have done a fair job of articulating a conflict. We have done a fair job. I hope you have understood how to go about it and how to articulate it correctly. We have also applied all the rules, meaning they are real in conflict. Then, then D is jeopardizing or blocking the need of C, etc. We checked and rechecked the logic. Still, our conflict is unresolved. So, what do we do next? As we said, as we saw one example, that we go about bringing out the assumptions. What do what do we do with those assumptions? How do how does the conflict get resolved? We have seen one example, but that is not enough, in my opinion. We need some more examples so that we get practice on that. What we have done so far is we have learned the technique of drawing a basic cloud. We have just done the science part of it. We have only looked at one example of the art part of it. We need to discuss it more. We need to see more examples, and that we'll be doing in the next session, that is on next Sunday. Meanwhile, you need to practice the science part of it. Now, let me share with you what we normally do. Normally, this session is done in a classroom. You are sitting in front of me. The clouds that I showed you are actually developed in the class with your help. You take your own cloud, your own dilemma, try to define it, and check it and recheck it. So that is how you get that practice. But unfortunately, this is an online session where yeah, I felt that it is not feasible. So I just substitute to that. I took several examples to explain to you how to do it. Now I had taken the horse to the water. Now horse has to drink it. Horse has to drink the water. I cannot make it drink. So what I have done is in this session, I have taught you how to define a cloud. Also, I have shown you the carrot in the sense that how to resolve the conflict by bringing out and challenging the assumption, which I'll dwell upon more. I'll spend more time and more examples during next part. Even the example that we took, that John and his mother, the conflict between them, having the crack game and not having that game, even that cloud is resolved amicably. There could be, okay, another cloud. Most of us, might have seen if you have a grown-up daughter, she wants to go out for parties, and as a parent, you don't want them to come back late. Let them go for parties. But they say, I can't leave the party in between. I will come. Then you ask them, by what time you will come? Whenever the party ends. No, no, you set up some rules. So there is a conflict between the parents and children, and we take it as this is a generation gap. These conflicts will remain. We have to live with that. Well, not necessarily. Yes, generation gap could be there, but we have to use that generation gap in educating ourselves and not using that as a reason for not attempting to resolve your conflict. So, what we can do meantime is that we have one full week before the next session. So, my request to you is please try to write conflicts. No, you'll say that, Mr. Rajiv, we are listening to you. Actually, had you told me before, I would have, written down something so that, I could write. If that is the reason, don't worry. I will be emailing to you a template. Oh, sorry, before that, okay, 1 minute. So this is what we did. We have to write a storyline first, write that, then construct the cloud, verify the cloud, is it conflict or not, and then evaporate the cloud. These are the four broad steps. We'll be discussing the fourth step in greater detail in the next session. So in the meantime, take a recent problem that bothers you because you feel under pressure to take a certain course of action, but really want to take a different action. You want to do this, and your mind, I should do that. A simple problem might be something like, I am under pressure from my boss to clear a technical request this Saturday, this weekend, while I have promised my family a weekend out of the town or whatever. Or a day after day generalized problem. But we have problems, in my department clearing technical requests on time, and I have to work overtime most of the weekend, and I don't like that. So how do we do that? You can take this example if it is your problem. If it is not your problem, you may be able to define the problem, but you will not be able to resolve it. Why? Because you will not know the real assumptions behind that. And if you don't know the assumption, there is nothing to challenge. Or you may come up with some superficial assumption that somebody else will say, no, this is not the right assumption. Then we don't know. So take your problem, your conflict, your dilemma, right? And then draw it. And then in next session, we'll learn how to break your conflicts in more detail so that you achieve win-win. And for that purpose, I will be emailing you a template. It is a soft copy. It is just like this. So have it on your computer, type your conflict, type the needs, type the objective, read it aloud, and keep on refining it till you say that yes, D and D prime are really in conflict, and this need requires that D has to be there. The need C requires that D prime has to be there, and this is your common objective. And then D is we're blocking C, and D prime is blocking B. Then the cloud is correctly defined. Keep on practicing. In first go, you will not succeed. You will get stuck. You will not know what to write. You will write a long sentence. So before you use this template, please write a storyline. Maybe one paragraph. Please don't write essays. You'll get lost. Don't write a soft story. Oh, you know what happened? He said this, I said that. No, just focus on writing what the situation is. This is my situation. Then refer to that situation and use this method to write the cloud that you have, write the conflict that you have, and then go backwards to B and C and to A. And if required, if you need my help, if you want me to verify your, if you want me to comment on your okay conflict or verify or give you some suggestions or say that no, this is not to be written in this way, please feel free to email it to me. I will respond to every such conflict, every such conflict. So now it is the ball is in your court. It is up to you. See why you came for this session. All your life you have seen that you are facing conflicts. You are facing conflicts. Sometimes you were you had your way because you are in that position to force the other party. Sometimes the other party has forced upon you. Sometimes you did not bother even to discuss. Live with that. And many times you have done some amicable compromise by giving up something on your side, and the other party gives up something, and you feel that you are happy, but you are not really happy with that. So, because of this thing, you came for today's session. Now, the takeaway for you is that this template that I will be mailing immediately after this session, please make use of this template. Write your clouds. You need my views, my opinion, my ideas, my suggestion. Send it over to me over the mail, and I will respond to it. This is my promise. And the template will have even this, but you may not at this at this point of time. If you can attempt on this, fine. But my advice to you is this week focus only on defining the problem. Don't worry too much about assumption. Otherwise, you'll get lost there. And problem if the problem is not correctly defined, bring out assumptions is fruitless exercise. So focus on that. Define one, two, three, four, five clouds, okay, or as many clouds that you have. Talk to your family, talk to your friends, ask them what problems, what conflicts they face. Try to document their conflicts in this format. Ask them questions, and okay, don't use do something imaginary that has no meaning, right? So ask them questions. Do this, all these things. Make an attempt. Now, if you tell me you don't have time, I wish you all the luck. Live with your conflicts. I have no problem, right? So this is what I had to share with you today.